Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon for those who are where it's afternoon. Um, my name is Ifeoma Odunlami. I'm an immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm in Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. My law firm serves clients in all 50 states with your immigration matter. So I'm excited to come on today because I have a really I have some information that would be very beneficial to somebody out there, many people. So if you hear this live and it sounds like something somebody could use, please be sure to forward it to the person. So if you join me, please let me know you're here. Say hello. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and I will answer questions. I will answer questions when I finish my topic. So, guys, I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, listening to social media. There's been this conversation about this uh, immigrant of Nigerian descent, Simon Gobadia. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to relate it to how it affects you guys. So basically, this is about Simon Gobadia, who was married to Portia, I think it's Williams. I don't really watch TV anymore. And to be quite frank, I didn't even pay any attention. I didn't read the court order on this case, but a friend of mine had sent me the summary. So basically, I want to talk about naturalization, the issues in naturalization. A lot of people think that naturalization is this really easy thing. You know, you fill out the forms and, it's a shoo-in. And I've said this many times that naturalization is more complicated than you know. And it is the government's last effort to determine whether you deserve to be a US citizen, whether you got your green card properly, right? Now, people can be denaturalized, but it's very rare, right? So when you come for naturalization, it's really essentially the last um, uh, time USCIS really pays attention to your case. And believe me, they do. So if you've had a case, if you've gotten your green card through fraud, through misrepresentation, or USCIS missed something, that is their opportunity to, remedy it and deny you the green card and maybe put you in removal proceedings. So this topic is really to talk about the issues that you can face in naturalization. I want to talk of the people I've represented, the consultations I've had, and I want to talk about Simon Gobadia because actually that story it amuses me because I cannot comprehend that he was able to do the things he did. I cannot comprehend it. So let me talk about him a little, and then we'll go into the issues that the regular Joe Schmo, that is not somebody who, has the persona of Simon Gobadia, who's just a lawbreaker, what the issues that a regular person could face. So let's talk about what Simon Gobadia did. Apparently, he came into the United States in 1982. He overstayed his visa, and in 1985, USCIS denied his adjustment of status, and he voluntarily departed in December 28, 1985. So I didn't read the order or the article or whatever, but I think there was some, sham marriages here and there. However, he left voluntarily in 1985 December, but he re-entered 6 months later in June of 1986. He overstayed his visa again, and then he was arrested for bank and credit card fraud and pleaded guilty to a felony. Guys, when you hear that word felony, it's never a good thing. A felony is like the death knell for anybody who wants to get a green card, a felony. So this guy was arrested for a felony. He was arrested again in 1989 for unauthorized use of a vehicle, and again in 1990 for fraud. And they began removal proceedings. They began to deport him again, second time. So he was deported in March of 1992. However, before he was deported, he had applied under a different name. He adopted a different persona. He applied for under the SAW program, which is a special agricultural program for an immigrant's a green card, right? And of course, he didn't indicate that he had all these criminal convictions, because if he did, he would never have gotten it. So he basically misrepresented who he was through fraud, and the SAW application was approved, and he received it in April 27, 1992. So 27 days after he was deported, or was it 27 days after he was deported, he got an immigrant's green card. So that's how he came back. So he's back. He's been back in the country since then, and he's been using this second persona, this second name, right, through which he got his green card. So I guess having had his green card all these years, since I guess 1992, he figured, you know what, why shouldn't I apply to become a U.S. citizen? After all, all should be forgiven. So he applied in December 22nd, 2016. He applied for naturalization under his second name, right? And USCIS at this point, of course, had run all the tests, and they realized that he got his green card under false pretenses, under misrepresentation, under fraud. So they denied him the naturalization. They denied the application for him to become a U.S. citizen, because clearly he was not a person of good moral character, right? And then he applied again. And this is a funny thing, right? I mean, in December 2016, when he was denied, USCIS could have put him in removal proceedings, but they didn't. So come December 31st, 2020, he applied again and was denied again. He requested a hearing, it was denied. And then this time he filed with the court, asking the court to vacate his the denial. And I think that's the court's decision that just came down over the weekend, where they basically denied his application. The funny thing is, any one of these things that this man did, the misrepresentation, the sham marriage, the aggravated felony, all of those could have gotten him deported. All of those should have stopped him from becoming a green card holder. But for some weird reason, I think part of it had to do with this was pre 9/11, because after 9/11, America became really, really strict with regards to, what do you call it, fingerprinting people who came in through the border and all that. But regardless, at some point, even though they hadn't been compliant, as the U.S. Immigration had not been compliant with, dotting their I's, crossing their T's with regards to Simon Guobadia, when it was time for naturalization, they got it together. So what I'm telling you now is, if you have any funny business, naturalization is the death knell. That could be the reason why you're deported. That could be the reason why your green card is taken away from you. That could be the reason everything just falls apart. So for those who think that naturalization is how many pages of application, you go in there, you're good, let me tell you, no, it is not. So Simon Guobadia, I tell you, I read this story, I was just in shock, because I was like, first of all, how did he get away with this? That's number one. And then number two was the audacity to keep applying to become a U.S. citizen when you have all this crookedness in your past. Like, I don't know what his plan was, because I'm going to be watching out to see where this goes, because all of these things make him deportable. And so maybe his attorneys were thinking that maybe if he was put in deportation proceedings, which USCIS can, if they put him in deportation proceedings, maybe he can avail himself of some of the waivers, such as cancellation of removal and 237 waiver, maybe. But USCIS could also just leave him in limbo, because for those waivers, you have to be in immigration proceedings. So if he's not in immigration proceedings and he's left, in limbo, he will never become a U.S. citizen, and he can keep his green card. I'm not sure what USCIS is going to do, but this is really fascinating because I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know it was possible for somebody to be able to get away with all this crookedry. I mean, I just made up that word, but honestly, I think a new word needs to be made up for all of this. So let me talk about you guys. Where do you get yourself in trouble when you're applying for naturalization? Well, let's talk about the requirements, what you need to become a U.S. citizen. You have to meet the residency and physical residency and physical presence requirements. You have to pass the English language and the civics test. You have to make sure you have no criminal history. You have to make sure you have, a criminal history that could be substantial, because USCIS has a 5-year look back period, which means that your misdeeds, you have to be, you must show that you're a person of good moral character during the 5 years immediately preceding your application for naturalization and up to the time of the oath of allegiance, right? So these things could stop you from being a US citizen, either fraud or misrepresentation during the process of, during your immigration process, financial misrepresentations, failing to meet your financial obligations, such as not paying your taxes. So I'm going to go into each of this in a little more detail. So let's talk about the 5-year look back period. What are the things that can stop you from showing that you're a person of good moral character? Well, it could be cheating on your spouse. Yeah, believe it or not, cheating on your spouse can get you denied from getting your US citizenship, because that shows that you're not a person of good moral character. It could also be not filing your taxes. And what a lot of people do is they don't file their taxes, and then they realize that they want to naturalize, and they're going to need to file their taxes. So they file all the taxes like maybe just before naturalization. And that can get you denied, because it shows that you're not a person of good moral character if you haven't been filing your taxes year after year, and now you're trying to file it all at once because you want to become a US citizen. Now, if you owe USCIS money, it doesn't mean that you cannot apply to be a US citizen and become a US citizen. It just means that you have to be filing your taxes. And if you owe them money, you're going to be in a payment plan, right? So it's not owing money that stops you from becoming a US citizen. It's not filing your taxes and not being on a payment plan, okay? Now, the other thing that could stop you from becoming a US citizen, of course, crime, felonies. And even though there's supposed to be a 5-year look back period, USCIS can look back as far as they like, really, truly. Of course, as attorneys, we make the argument that, it's past the look back period and the person has changed and, is now a person that contributes to society and the community and all that stuff. We can make that argument. But there are certain crimes that means you can never become a US citizen. Never, ever, ever. Now, let's talk about another thing that stops people from becoming US citizens. And I've seen this in the past 3-4 weeks. If you get your green card through marriage, right? If you're still living with your spouse in marital union, which means you're living together, you're happy together, you can apply to become a US citizen within 3 years from the time you got your green card. Otherwise, you have to wait for 5 years. So if you're divorced or you're separated from your spouse, you have to wait for 5 years. But what I've seen is people who they're separated from their spouses, but they're applying, but they're not divorced yet. So they think that they can apply under the 3-year rule. And that brings a lot of problems, because if you apply under the 3-year rule, you have to show that you are in a bona fide marriage and that you're still living with your spouse and you're in what they call marital union. So if USCIS is to find out that you and your spouse are not together, they will deny that petition. And of course, sometimes they don't even stop at checking to see whether you're in marital union. They go back to see if it was even a real marriage in the first place. So you might find yourself now having to defend that you were in a bona fide marriage. But if you waited for 5 years, right, you don't have to show you were in a bona fide marriage. However, that does not preclude USCIS from investigating you whenever they feel like thinking, maybe the marriage was a sham marriage, because a sham marriage can pop up anytime. But if you wait for 5 years, right, you don't have to present that proof. You don't have to show proof that you both have commingled finances. You don't have to show proof that you're filing your taxes together, that you have a lease together, that you're living together. You don't. Okay, so a word of caution: if you got your green card through your spouse and you guys are not in harmony anymore, wait 5 years before you file for naturalization. And better still, talk to an attorney, because there's so many people that don't need to be filing for naturalization, period. And it's better to just be a green card holder forever than be in deportation proceeding, lose your green card, and be deported. So that's one. Now let's talk about the people who violated some kind of law when they got their green card, and USCIS didn't catch on it, and now they have. I'll tell you about a case I had. This client of mine apparently had applied for naturalization like years, and she had been waiting 1 year, 2 years. She hadn't heard from them. So she came to me at that point and said, I applied for naturalization. It's been 2, 3 years. I still haven't heard from them. And that is really, really strange, because there is a law that says that USCIS, once you apply for naturalization, you go for your interview, they must respond to you within 120 days. So I sent a letter to USCIS invoking that law, telling them you must respond. And then we filed a request for a hearing. We went for the hearing, and that was the first time that we found out that USCIS had found out that the client, my client, had gotten her green card through, through, they call it some misrepresentation. And this is what it is, because she didn't even know it was misrepresentation. She didn't know about it because she didn't know the law. So her father had filed for her when she was in her country, and she was single. And so she went for the interview. But before she went for the interview, I think it was after she went for the interview in her country, she got the green card. I guess as a show of unity with her boyfriend, then, to let him know, don't worry, we're still together. I'm not forgetting you. She got married, and then she came to the United States, and that's a no-no. So because she was approved as a green card holder under F1, which is unmarried sons and daughters of a US citizen. And so when she got married, she rightfully should have been in F3. So she came into the United States under the wrong category, but she didn't know that. So she was doing her thing. 5 years, she applied for naturalization. And that's when she, USCIS checked up on it, because I think they asked her a question. But because she didn't realize that she had done anything wrong, she said she wanted to file for her husband, I think is what she told me. And they said to her, when did you get married? And she told them, oh, I got married just before I came to the United States. And boom, that was it. So luckily for her, she wasn't put in deportation proceedings, but she couldn't become a US citizen. And this is the funny thing. If only she had talked to a lawyer, she could have come into the United States and left the next day, gone back to her country to marry her spouse, and it would have been okay. Because the category in which you come in is the category you're granted the green card is a category in which you must come into the United States. You cannot change it. So I think I've had several videos that talk about unmarried, how being married can basically just derail certain petitions. This is one of them. Another one is if your VAWA, if you file for VAWA, you cannot get married until your VAWA is approved, right? Same thing with SJIS. You cannot get married until that is approved. So it's important to know this, because if USCIS at some point finds out, right, they will not only deny you your request for naturalization, but they can even put you in deportation proceedings. And what else? There's another person that I did a consultation with who had their rule, but him and his spouse were separated. And guess what? USCIS even began to they just went, I think they did a fraud investigation and decided that the marriage that even gave him the green card. And the funny thing is, this green card, he had got a conditional green card. So he went before USCIS like twice. And he proved to them that it was a valid marriage twice. But come naturalization time, whatever investigations they had, they decided that it wasn't real. And so he came to our office because now he needed to show that it was a bona fide marriage. So I tell all of you this so you know that filing for naturalization is not something that you can just, think about it. You're filing to become a US citizen. You got to take it serious, not just studying for the test but just making sure that your paperwork is in order. There are people who are filed for naturalization only for USCIS to go back to the divorce decree before they marry the US citizen to say, we're looking at this again, and we don't think it's for real, right? We think it's not properly done. We think it's a fake divorce decree. Therefore, you should not have gotten the green card. Therefore, you're not qualified to apply for naturalization. So I think that's pretty much what I want to talk about, the importance of honesty throughout the immigration process. Financial issues, you want to meet your financial obligations. If you're not paying your child support, that could stop you from becoming a US citizen. Okay. Like I said, if you're cheating on your spouse, I don't know how they're going to know this, but trust me, just know that if you want to become a US citizen, you have to be on your best behavior. And of course, the residency and physical presence requirements, you cannot stay outside the United States consecutively for more than 6 months in the 5-year or the 3-year period preceding when you apply. That's important. You need to show physical presence. You need to show continuous presence as well. And of course, language. You have to be able to speak the English language, and you have to pass your civics test. So that was that. So let me take some questions. And if anything else happens with the Simon Guobadia matter, you guys know I'll be coming on live to tell you about it. So MK says, dear attorney, this is MK from, I think, YouTube, says, since VAWA fully relied on self-declaration, what is prepared by a victim of abuse? What can be fully rephrased by applicant? Of course, marriage is bona. I don't understand this, MK. Please rewrite again. I don't understand what you're saying. So Habib says, can my US spouse file my overseas children while I'm still waiting for my interview or education of my case? That's a great question, Habib. Yes, your US citizen can file for your children abroad, but this is a caveat. First of all, your US spouse can only file for children who were under the age of 18 when you got married to your US spouse, because in immigration land, they are her stepchildren. Number two, they're likely not going to approve the case until your case is approved, because that case is dependent on the bona fide. You have to show that your marriage to your spouse was a bona fide marriage. So a lot of times I've seen cases where, and this is really odd, where it's approved, but the immigrant case in America is still pending, but that's not the way it's supposed to happen. Because the relationship is forged from your relationship with your US citizen spouse, it's important that your USCIS approves that I-130, approves the fact that it's a bona fide marriage, it's a legal marriage, and then they can approve your children, so that can happen. So let's see, let me see if I can get some questions from Instagram. I'll come back to Facebook and YouTube. Hello, Cruising. How are you? Nana Tom 4 says, can I get AP before EAD? Nana, I rarely, I've never seen that happen. EAD typically comes before AP. Typically, if you apply for EAD and AP at the same time, advanced parole, it typically comes together. The employment authorization document, the card, typically has a little place where, where it tells you that you can travel with it. But sometimes it's approved separately. But I have never actually seen an advanced parole document coming before the EAD. Does that mean it can happen? No, but I just have never seen that. So Pika Yog says, I lived in Jersey and had no one to help or assist us. I'm so sorry to hear that, Pika Yog. If you need assistance, please call my office, 973-993-1900. We assist people all over. We're a national law firm, so we assist people wherever they live. So if you don't live in New Jersey, we can still assist you. So hi, Vince Fash. Hello, Salawu from Indianapolis and Mayor from San Francisco. So let's see if I have another question right here. JJ says, hello, I filed for a waiver from exemption of vaccination. Please, how long does it take? JJ, I really don't know. That really just depends, It doesn't take that long, but it really depends, I don't know, USCIS, some things take longer, some things don't. Let's see. Let me go to Instagram and see if I have any questions there. Fresh Crew says you can never cheat U.S. immigration. Fresh Crew, I agree with you because there are people who feel that they've gotten away, and maybe they have, but honestly, 2024 is different from 1992. So I honestly don't believe that Simon Gobadia could have succeeded in any of this craziness that he was able to do before, because technology and a whole bunch of stuff that we don't even know that the government has access to check on the truthfulness of an application. And I think what I tell people is the consequences of misrepresentation or fraud or criminal activity is really, really high. So you really want to be careful. You have to be careful and be compliant with the rules, and you just want to, who wants to live their life afraid that USCIS is going to knock on their door and find out something about them? The better way to do it is to find ways that you can get your status. Sometimes it takes a long time because maybe there's nothing immediately available. But I always say this, it's better to be undocumented than to be barred from getting a green card, than to be deported and then you can't come back. There are people who can never come back to the United States. And on the other hand, there are people who've been here forever, just minding their business, undocumented. So when you perpetrate a fraud against the United States government, they don't play with it, they don't take it. They're very serious about people being compliant. So yeah. So M. Billy says, I have a question. My wife is in Canada as an asylum seeker, and I have a green card and I have filed for her petition, but I wonder what will happen once USCIS approves the application. So what I understand from this is your wife is in Canada and you have a green card. So you filed the petition for her. So that petition is via consular processing. So it's just going to go through the, to the process of consular processing. So the I-130 is approved. You go to NVC, National Visa Center. When you're documentarily qualified, the case is sent to the American Embassy in Canada, where they call her for an interview. That's really how the consular process works. Let's see. All right, I'm just looking for more questions. Onome says, how much do you charge? For what, Onome? It all differs based on what you're asking, what the case is. We don't have a one size fits all. So Vince Fash says, which is faster, K1 or K3? Vince, K1 is fiance visa. K3 is really obsolete. That was available when you filed an I-130 and it was taking too long. But I don't know anybody using K3. A lot of people on those little group chats where you guys chit chat keep talking about K3. Nobody's filing K3 anymore. Onome says, what's your advice to international students that want to get the green card? Onome, you should have a consultation and figure out what because the advice to international students, of course, if you're F1, you want to do OPT and you hope to get a job, somebody to file a H1 for you. H1B is good for 6 years, it's 3 years first and then renewable for another 3 years. And hopefully within that process, you found somebody, an employer who's going to file a green card for you, or you found the love of your life, or you're able to maybe file under one of the employment visas that, like national interest waivers, that you really have to have a proper consultation with somebody who does employment immigration so that they can look at your resume, look at what you do and see if there's a pathway for you through maybe for you to apply on your own. The real Afim Mawugbe says, hello, ma'am. I just met a U.S. citizen while in my B2 stay in U.S. Could we marry and can he file for me? So that's a great question. So if you're here on a B2 and you're with a U.S. citizen, you're dating a U.S. citizen, and you guys want to get married, there's nothing that says he cannot file for you. He can file for you, and you can get your papers that way. Of course, you want to show USCIS that's a bona fide marriage because they're going to want to know that it's a real marriage and that you didn't marry this U.S. citizen just because you wanted to stay in the United States. So you want to show that it's a legitimate, good faith marriage, and you also want to make sure you have no inadmissibilities that would prevent that. If you do, you may need to file a waiver. But congratulations, and I hope it works out for you. They can definitely file for you when you get married, okay? So Lucia says, I filed for citizen. I'm not sure, but we separated before it's through. What do you mean? You filed for naturalization and you separated before it's through? What's going to happen since we're not together? So if you file under the 3-year rule, you want to let USCIS, you just need to withdraw your petition because you're not together anymore. So you have to withdraw your petition and wait for 5 years. So then you can apply for your naturalization. Lizzie Montel says, can VAWA case be closed if you plan to get married to a U.S. citizen? Yes, you can withdraw your VAWA case and then get married if you want to. Or you can continue your VAWA case and not marry until it's approved, okay? Let's see. What's the time? Kenny says, if you have a 10-year green card and you have had it for 5 years, when filing for naturalization, can they withdraw it? I don't understand that question at all. Who's going to withdraw it? So Ugochi says, if one files for asylum and in the course of waiting for the hearing, the person marries a citizen, does this automatically cancel the asylum case, and can the person visit home country after the marriage? So 2 questions. So Ugochi, if you have filed for asylum and then you marry a U.S. citizen during that process, it does not automatically cancel the asylum case. Your asylum case continues, and you can withdraw it if you want to proceed on a marriage-based petition. With regards to visiting the home country after the marriage, I mean, I guess you can, but you want to, if you don't have an asylum case anymore, but you want to make sure that it wasn't a frivolous asylum case, okay? All right. So Biodun says, if a married lady who's a citizen has a child that is not born in the US and her husband refuses to file for the girl, what can the mother do to get her daughter to be a citizen? But you're a married lady who's a citizen. Why can't you file for your child yourself? I don't understand. You say you're a married lady, you have a child that's not born in the US. If you're a US citizen, you don't need your husband to file for your child. So Adedolakwa says, how long does an asylee have to wait to become a citizen? An asylee can apply for their green card 1 year while after asylee status, and then they have to wait 5 years. 5 years, and then apply for citizenship. All right, guys. I'm gonna take one more question, and I'm gonna go. So, David Manser says the 5-year rule, does that start from the year you got married or when you got your green card? When you got your green card. All right, the answer, David Manser, is when you got your green card. So, guys, pleasure being with you guys here. So, for those who want to naturalize, make sure that you're taking the process, because that's one of the highest honors American government bestows to people who are not American is when you become a U.S. citizen. So it's a great it's something that you have to really take seriously. If you have any prior issues with immigration or there's been any fraud or anything, talk to an attorney so that they can advise you on whether you should proceed and how you should proceed, okay? All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.